The sisters and their burden. In the heart of a sun-drenched African village surrounded by lush, emerald forests, Zai and Amora, two radiant sisters, lived under the unyielding rule of their father, Chief Adisa. Chief Adisa was a man of immense power and influence, his word law within the village. His daughters were known for their beauty, wisdom, and kindness, admired by many but bound by the expectations of their father. Despite their many qualities, Zai and Amora found themselves at odds with their father. Chief Adisa had long sought to marry them off to suitors of his choosing, men of wealth and status who could solidify his alliances and expand his influence. However, the sisters yearned for more than a life dictated by power and prestige. They wished for love that was genuine, partnerships built on mutual respect, not mere transactions. One fateful day, Chief Adisa summoned Zai and Amora to his grand hut. The flickering firelight cast shadows on the walls, matching the dark mood that hung over the room. Adisa's booming voice echoed, "I have spoken to the elders. You will marry the men I have chosen, and you will do so without question. Your duty is to this family." The sisters exchanged a glance, their hearts pounding. Zai, the elder and bolder of the two, stepped forward. "Father, we respect you, but we cannot marry men we do not know or love. We ask for the freedom to choose our own paths." Adisa's face darkened with anger. "You dare defy me," he roared. "You bring shame upon this household with your disobedience. You are no longer daughters of mine." Before they could utter a word in protest, Adisa turned his back on them, his decree final. That night, under the cloak of darkness, the sisters were cast out. Their belongings were few, a bundle of clothes, a loaf of bread, and a water god. The wilderness was vast and unfamiliar, the shadows of the trees stretching like ominous fingers. Zai and Amora huddled together as the chill of the night crept in. Their hearts were heavy, but their spirits were unbroken. "We cannot let this be the end," Zai said, her voice firm despite the tremble in her hands. "We must prove to Father and to the world that we are more than pawns in someone else's game." Amora nodded, her eyes glistening with tears she refused to shed. "We will survive, Zai. We will find our strength and our way back to honor." Under the canopy of stars, the sisters made a pact. They would face the unknown together, forging a path not just to survive but to reclaim their place in the world. With the rising sun, they ventured deeper into the wilderness, unaware of the trials that awaited them and the strength they would discover within themselves. Into the wild. The wilderness stretched endlessly before Zai and Amora, a labyrinth of towering trees and underbrush that whispered secrets with every rustle. The sisters trudged forward, their feet weary and their spirits heavy, but neither dared voice their fears. They had promised each other they would endure, no matter the cost. The forest was alive with sounds, chirping insects, distant animal cries, and the creaking of branches swaying in the breeze. It was both beautiful and menacing. Zai clutched the small knife she had carried from home, her knuckles white with tension. Amora followed closely, her keen eyes scanning the surroundings for signs of danger. "Do you think we'll find a village soon?" Amora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Zai replied, her tone steady but uncertain. "But we'll find something. We have to." Hours turned into days, and their small provisions dwindled. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and their muscles ached from the endless walking. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they stumbled upon a small clearing. In its center stood a humble hut, its walls made of woven reeds and its roof thatched with dried grass. Smoke curled lazily from a chimney, carrying the scent of herbs and mystery. Cautiously, the sisters approached the hut. Before they could knock, the door creaked open. An elderly woman stepped out, her frame bent with age but her eyes sharp and bright like polished stones. She wore a cloak of deep green, adorned with beads and feathers that swayed with her movements. "Come in, children," the woman said, her voice soft yet commanding. The forest told me you were coming. The sisters hesitated, glancing at each other. Despite their uncertainty, the warmth of the firelight spilling from the hut was too inviting to resist. They entered, and the woman gestured for them to sit by the hearth. "I am Osha," she said, her hands moving deftly as she stirred a pot over the fire. "And you are far from where you belong." "We've been cast out," Zoe explained, her voice trembling with a mix of exhaustion and determination. "We have no home, no family." Osha's gaze bore into them, as though she could see the weight of their struggles etched into their souls. "You seek to prove your worth, to reclaim what you have lost," she said, nodding. "But the path ahead is treacherous, and it will demand more than you can imagine." "What do you mean?" Amora asked, leaning forward. Osha sat down across from them, her expression grave. "There is a test you must face, one that will uncover your true potential. It will require courage, wisdom, and a bond that no force can break." The sisters listened intently, their hearts pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Osha continued, "You will be shown the depth of your strength, but only if you are willing to embrace the unknown. There are no guarantees, only the promise that this journey will shape who you are meant to become." Zoe squared her shoulders, determination burning in her eyes. "We'll do whatever it takes." Amora nodded, though her hands fidgeted in her lap. "If this is what we must do, then we'll face it together." Osha smiled faintly, her eyes softening. "Good. Rest now, for when the sun rises, your journey truly begins." The sisters settled into the humble comfort of the hut, their weary bodies finally given a chance to relax. Yet, their minds raced with questions. What was this test? Would they succeed? And what awaited them on the other side? As the first light of dawn crept into the forest, Osha stood in the doorway, watching them with a knowing look. "Go now," she said, handing them a small satchel filled with herbs and a carved wooden charm. "This will guide you. Trust in each other, for you are stronger together." With a mix of gratitude and trepidation, Zoe and Amora stepped back into the forest. Their journey had just begun, and the wild seemed to hum with anticipation. Somewhere ahead, their destiny awaited. The first trial. The sun blazed overhead as Zoe and Amora emerged from the dense forest into a barren landscape. The air was thick with heat, and the ground beneath their feet cracked like a dry riverbed. In the distance, they saw a small village, its homes made of sun-bleached clay and thatch. Thin trails of smoke rose from the chimneys, but there was no movement, no signs of life beyond the stillness of despair. As the sisters approached, the sight became clearer. Villagers, thin and weary, sat listlessly under makeshift shelters, their faces etched with desperation. Children played sluggishly in the dust, their laughter muted by hunger. The village well, which stood at the center, was surrounded by empty pots and dry buckets. A young boy spotted Zoe and Amora as they entered the village and ran to alert the others. The villagers gathered cautiously, their expressions a mix of hope and suspicion. An elder, his face weathered by years and sorrow, stepped forward. "Who are you, and why have you come here?" he asked, his tone wary. Zoe stepped forward, her voice steady. "We are travelers, cast out from our home. We saw your village and wanted to offer help." The elder raised a skeptical brow. "Help? What can two young women do that we haven't already tried? Our well has run dry, and the rains have abandoned us." Amora glanced at Zoe, worry flickering in her eyes. They had no plan, no resources, but something stirred in Zoe, a memory of Osha's words and the carved wooden charm now resting in her satchel. "Please, let us try," Zoe said earnestly. "We may not know how yet, but we won't leave you to suffer." The villagers murmured amongst themselves, some hopeful, others doubtful. Finally, the elder nodded reluctantly. "You may try, but we have little faith left to spare." The sisters began their search, determined to uncover the source of the drought. Zoe clutched the charm Osha had given her, feeling its rough edges as though they might guide her. Hours passed as they scoured the dry, cracked fields and lifeless streams. Zoe, Amora said, breaking the silence, what if we can't find anything? We promised these people, and we'll find something, Zoe interrupted, more to convince herself than her sister. She tightened her grip on the charm, recalling Osha's cryptic guidance. We have to. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows, Zoe noticed something unusual. Near a large rock formation at the edge of the village, the ground was damp, the only sign of moisture they had seen in miles. Amora, look! Zoe exclaimed, pointing to the spot. They knelt to investigate, digging with their hands. The earth was cool and damp, and soon, they uncovered a trickle of water seeping from the ground. It's a spring! Amora cried, her voice filled with hope. Excitedly, the sisters rushed back to the village to share their discovery. However, their news was met with skepticism. A spring, one villager scoffed. And how do we know it's not a trick? The elder studied the sisters closely. If you've truly found water, bring it here and prove it. Disheartened but undeterred, Zoe and Amora returned to the spring. They filled a clay pot with the clear, cool water and brought it back to the village. The elder tasted it cautiously, his eyes widening as the refreshing liquid soothed his parched throat. It's true, he declared. They found water. A cheer erupted from the villagers, but not everyone was convinced. A middle-aged woman stepped forward, her arms crossed. This water is not enough for all of us. What if it dries up too? How can we trust them? The tension thickened as the sisters stood before the crowd. Zoe's heart pounded, but she stepped forward. We didn't come here to harm you or to give you false hope. We'll help you dig to reach the full spring and ensure you have water for all. The elder nodded thoughtfully. If you're willing to help us dig, then perhaps we can trust you. The next morning, the sisters and the villagers worked together, digging deeper into the ground near the spring. Hours turned into a grueling day, but as dusk fell, the water surged forth, bubbling up in a clear, steady stream. Cries of joy echoed through the village as children splashed and laughed, and the elders wept with relief. The villagers' attitudes toward Zoe and Amora shifted. They were no longer seen as strangers but as saviors. The elder approached them that evening, his voice filled with gratitude. You've given us life again. We were wrong to doubt you. The sisters smiled, though their hearts were heavy with the knowledge that this was only the first of many trials they would face. As they prepared to continue their journey the next day, Zoe touched the charm again, feeling its warmth. Osha's words echoed in her mind, the path ahead is treacherous, but it will show you who you are meant to become. With renewed determination, the sisters set off, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The water of life. The morning sun painted the village in golden hues, and the once desperate faces of the villagers now carried glimmers of hope. The spring Zoe and Amora had unearthed was flowing steadily, but its waters, though clear, carried an unsettling taste. The villagers, cautious and wary, feared that it might still hold danger. As the villagers gathered around the spring, murmuring their concerns, Amora stepped forward. Her warm smile and soft voice calmed the restless crowd. We understand your fear, she said gently. But we promise to ensure this water is safe for all of you. Her words were met with hesitant nods. Amora spent the rest of the day walking among the villagers, listening to their stories and easing their doubts. She played with the children, helped an elderly woman carry her pots, and even shared the little food she and Zoe had left. Her acts of kindness softened even the hardest hearts, and the villagers began to see her as a beacon of hope. Meanwhile, Zoe was deep in thought. She sat by the spring, examining the charm Osha had given her. She turned it over in her hands, studying its carvings, symbols that seemed to pulse with an unseen energy. Something about the charm felt connected to the water, as though it held a solution. Closing her eyes, Zay let her mind wander back to Osha's words. Trust in each other. Trust in yourselves. She opened her eyes, determined to act. Gathering materials from the village, a hollow gourd, charcoal, and sand, she constructed a makeshift water filter. Though crude, it was her best effort to purify the water. With Amora's help, they tested the filtered water, offering it first to the elder. He drank cautiously, then smiled broadly. "It is pure," he declared, holding up the gourd. "They have saved us." Cheers erupted from the villagers. Children danced around the spring, their laughter ringing out like a song of joy. The sisters worked with the villagers to set up a system for filtering the water, ensuring everyone could drink without fear. The villagers, overwhelmed with gratitude, prepared a feast in honor of the sisters. Though the food was simple, roasted yams, fresh fruit, and a stew of wild greens, it was shared with love and appreciation. That night, the elder approached the sisters, his weathered hands holding a small bundle. "This is for you," he said, unwrapping a parcel of dried meat, nuts, and herbs. "You've given us more than water. You've given us hope. Take this for your journey, and may the spirits guide you." The villagers formed a circle around Zay and Amora, chanting blessings for their safety and success. For the first time since being cast out, the sisters felt a sense of belonging. But as the night deepened, they knew their journey was far from over. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the sisters prepared to leave. The villagers gathered to bid them farewell, offering prayers and thanks. Zay and Amora bowed deeply, promising to carry the villagers' kindness in their hearts. Just as they were about to step back into the wilderness, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the clearing. Osha stood tall and serene, her green cloak blending with the trees. Her presence silenced the crowd, her eyes fixed on the sisters. "You have done well," Osha said, her voice carrying an otherworldly calm. "But this was only the beginning. The spring you uncovered was a trial of faith, and you passed because you trusted in yourselves and each other. What comes next?" Zay asked, her voice steady despite the nervous flutter in her chest. Osha smiled faintly. "The path ahead will test your strength and unity even more. There is a greater challenge waiting, one that will demand everything you've learned and more. Do not lose faith." Before they could ask more, Osha turned and disappeared into the forest as silently as she had come. The sisters exchanged a determined look, their bond stronger than ever. With their provisions and blessings from the villagers, Zay and Amora stepped back onto the winding path, ready to face whatever awaited them. The forest seemed to hum with life, as if it too anticipated the trials yet to come. A cursed river. After days of traversing dense forest and rocky terrain, Zay and Amora stood at the edge of a wide, ominous river. Its dark waters swirled and churned as if alive, and a cold mist hung over the surface, shrouding the other side in mystery. The sisters could feel a strange energy emanating from the river, an unsettling hum that resonated deep within their bones. "This must be the cursed river," Zay murmured, gripping the wooden charm Osha had given her. The villagers spoke of it, a barrier no one dares to cross. Amora shivered despite the warmth of the day. "How do we cross it? There's no bridge, and I don't see a way around." As they stood pondering their next move, a shadow emerged from the mist. A small wooden boat appeared, gliding silently toward the riverbank. Standing at the helm was a tall, enigmatic man with deep-set eyes that gleamed like polished ebony. His presence was both unsettling and magnetic. "I am Kofi," the man said, his voice smooth and commanding. "I am the ferryman of this river. If you wish to cross, you must first prove your worth." Zay stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "What do you mean, prove our worth?" Kofi smirked, his expression unreadable. "I will ask you a riddle. If you answer correctly, I will take you across. But be warned, the river demands a price from all who pass. Amora glanced at Zoe, her eyes wide with unease. And if we fail, she asked. Then you will remain here, Kofi said simply, gesturing toward the forbidding forest behind them. Forever. The sisters exchanged a look, and Zoe nodded. We'll answer your riddle. Kofi's lips curled into a faint smile as he leaned on his oar. Listen carefully, he said. I am not alive, but I grow, I have no lungs, yet I need air, I have no mouth, and yet I can drown. What am I? Zoe furrowed her brow, her mind racing. She repeated the riddle under her breath, analyzing each clue. Amora, standing beside her, whispered, not alive but grows. Could it be something like fire? Zoe's eyes widened. Fire needs air to burn, and too much water can drown it. With newfound confidence, Zoe turned to Kofi. The answer is fire. Kofi's expression remained inscrutable for a moment before he chuckled softly. Correct, he said. You are clever, but the river demands more than just an answer. The ferryman motioned for them to step into the boat. The sisters hesitated but climbed aboard, their hearts pounding. Kofi pushed off, and the boat began to glide across the water. As they reached the middle of the river, the mist grew thicker, and the air turned icy. The water beneath them seemed to ripple with malevolence, and faint whispers echoed around them. Amora clutched Zoe's arm, her breath quickening. What's happening? Amora whispered. The curse, Kofi said, his voice calm despite the growing tension. The river does not let anyone pass without a cost. It will show you what you fear most. Suddenly, the mist around them swirled into shapes, forming vivid illusions. Zoe saw herself standing before Chief Adisa, his face twisted with anger and disappointment. You failed, the illusion spat. You are nothing without my name. Amora, on the other hand, saw the villagers they had left behind. Their faces were gaunt and accusing, their voices a chorus of blame. You abandoned us, they cried. You brought us false hope. The sisters gripped each other's hands, their shared fear threatening to consume them. But as the illusions grew stronger, Amora spoke, her voice trembling but resolute. This isn't real, Zoe. We've faced worse. We've proven ourselves. Zoe nodded, her own voice steadying. Together, we are stronger than this. Their defiance seemed to shatter the illusions, the mist dispersing like a broken spell. The river grew calm again, and the boat reached the far bank. Kofi helped them ashore, his expression softer now. You have paid the price, he said. You faced your fears and overcame them. Few are able to do that. The sisters, though shaken, stood tall. Zoe turned to Kofi. Thank you for your help. Kofi inclined his head. Your journey is far from over, but you have taken an important step. Trust in each other, and you may yet succeed. As the boat disappeared back into the mist, Zoe and Amora looked at the path ahead. The cursed river was behind them, but they knew the true challenges were yet to come. Together, they pressed on, their bonds stronger than ever. The Shadow Beast. The boat cut silently through the cursed river, the mist thickening like a suffocating shroud around Zoe, Amora, and Kofi. The air was heavy with an unnatural chill, and the water beneath them churned with an ominous rhythm. Zoe gripped the edge of the boat, her knuckles pale, while Amora clutched the carved charm Osha had given them. Kofi stood at the helm, his oar slicing through the water with practiced ease. Stay alert, he warned, his voice low. The river is not as calm as it appears. What do you mean? Amora asked, her voice trembling. This river is alive, Kofi replied, his gaze fixed on the swirling waters. It feeds on fear and doubt. And when it senses enough, it will summon them. Summon what? Zoe asked sharply. Before Kofi could answer, a low growl echoed through the mist, followed by another, closer and more menacing. The sisters froze as the mist around the boat began to darken, twisting into shadowy forms with glowing red eyes. The creatures moved like living nightmares, their shapes indistinct but terrifying, wolves with jagged teeth, serpents coiled and ready to strike, and faceless figures reaching out with clawed hands. "The shadow beast," Kofi said grimly, steadying the boat as it rocked under the creature's weight. "Born from your deepest fears. They will not stop until you face them." The first beast lunged at Suri, its glowing eyes fixed on her. She ducked instinctively, grabbing a wooden pole from the boat to defend herself. "Amora, stay close," she shouted, swinging the pole to keep the creature at bay. Amora clung to the charm, her hands trembling as another beast slithered toward her. Its shape shifted, becoming the twisted form of a villager she had seen before, their face contorted in anger and betrayal. "You failed us," it hissed, its voice echoing in her mind. "No," Amora cried, shaking her head. She stepped back, her foot nearly slipping off the edge of the boat. "You're not real." Kofi's voice rang out over the chaos. "Fight them. They are your fears made flesh. Conquer them, or they will consume you." Zai gritted her teeth as she struck at the beast before her, its form flickering like a flame. "Amora, we can't let them win," she yelled. "We've come too far for this." Amora's eyes locked onto Zoe's, and something clicked within her. Clutching the charm tightly, she took a deep breath and steadied herself. "You're right," she whispered, her voice growing stronger. "We've faced worse than shadows." Summoning her courage, Amora held the charm aloft and stepped toward the shadowy figure, her voice firm. "You have no power over me. You are nothing but fear, and fear does not control me." The shadow beast recoiled, its form dissolving into wisps of smoke. Inspired, Zoe followed suit, using her pole to strike down the beast attacking her while shouting, "I am stronger than you." One by one, the beasts fell, their forms dissipating into the mist as the sisters faced them head-on. The air grew lighter, and the boat steadied as the creatures retreated into the depths of the cursed river. Breathing heavily, the sisters collapsed onto the boat's wooden planks. Kofi stood silent for a moment, watching the river return to its eerie stillness. Then he turned to Zoe and Amora, a rare smile softening his features. "You fought well," he said. "The shadow beasts are not easily defeated. They are born from the doubts and fears that live within you, feeding on your vulnerabilities. Facing them shows your resolve." Zoe looked up, still clutching the pole. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" Kofi nodded. "The river tests all who cross it. Only those strong enough to confront their fears can pass." Amora, still holding the charm, asked, "Why did they feel so real?" "It was like they knew everything we were afraid of." "Because they did," Kofi said. "The river sees into your soul. But fear is only as powerful as you allow it to be." As the boat reached the far bank, the sisters stepped onto solid ground, their legs shaky but their spirits stronger. Kofi looked at them one last time, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the test of the river, but the challenges ahead will demand even more of you. Remember what you've learned here." Without another word, Kofi pushed off, disappearing into the mist as the sisters watched in silence. Zoe turned to Amora, her voice steady. "We did it." Amora smiled faintly, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "We did. Together." The cursed river lay behind them, but the road ahead was long and uncertain. Taking a deep breath, the sisters pressed on, knowing that whatever trials awaited, they would face them side by side. A kingdom divided. The air beyond the cursed river was starkly different, thicker, laden with the weight of an unseen tension. Zoe and Amora tread cautiously, the forest thinning to reveal a sprawling kingdom in disarray. Its once grand palace loomed in the distance, now scarred with broken towers and crumbling walls. The fields surrounding the city were barren, dotted with makeshift camps of displaced villagers. The sisters exchanged uneasy glances, sensing the unrest. "What happened here?" Amora whispered, her voice barely audible. "We are about to find out," Zoe replied, gripping the charm Osha had given her. As they entered the kingdom, they were met with wary gazes from the people. Soldiers patrolled the streets, their expressions grim. It didn't take long for the sisters to hear whispers of the conflict. The kingdom was ruled by two siblings, Prince Omori and Princess Nia, whose bitter feud had fractured their land. Both claimed the throne, and their rivalry had plunged the kingdom into chaos. A commotion near the town square drew their attention. Two groups of villagers argued heatedly, each accusing the other of treachery. Zay stepped forward, her voice commanding. "What's going on here?" One villager turned to her, desperation in his eyes. "We are starving because of the princess hoarding." Another villager retorted, "The princess's reckless plans have driven us into ruin." Before Zai and Amora could process the situation, a guard arrived. By order of the prince, all disputes must be brought to him. He eyed the sisters curiously. "You're strangers here. The prince will want to speak with you." The sisters were taken to the prince's camp, a fortress of strategy and control. Prince Omari was a regal figure, his posture straight and his gaze sharp. He welcomed them with cautious interest. "I hear you crossed the Curse River," he said. "Only the strong and wise can accomplish such a feat. We could use such allies in our fight." "What are you fighting for?" Zay asked, her tone even. Omori's expression darkened. "To bring order to a kingdom that my sister has plunged into chaos. Nia's misguided ideals threaten everything our people need to survive. We must have strong leadership to restore balance." Zai listened intently, his arguments aligning with her own values of structure and reason. She nodded slowly. "Perhaps we can help." Amora, however, felt uneasy. Something about Omari's rigid demeanor unsettled her. She whispered to Zoe, "We should hear both sides." The sisters left the prince's camp and ventured to the other side of the city, where they found Princess Nia's stronghold. Unlike Omari's camp, Nia's was vibrant and filled with hopeful chatter. Villagers milled about freely, and the princess herself greeted the sisters with warmth. "Welcome," Nia said, her smile radiant despite the weariness in her eyes. "We've heard of your courage. Anyone who crosses the Curse River must have a brave heart." "What are you fighting for?" Amara asked. "To give the people a voice," Nia replied passionately. "My brother believes in ruling with an iron fist, but our people deserve freedom and equality. They need hope, not oppression." Her words resonated deeply with Amora, who valued compassion and community. She turned to Zoe, her voice firm. "We should stand with her." Zoe frowned. "Nia's ideas are noble, but ideas alone won't rebuild this kingdom. Omari's plan might be harsh, but it's practical." The disagreement hung in the air like a storm cloud. Over the next few days, the sisters became entangled in the siblings' conflict. Zay worked closely with Omori, helping him devise strategies to stabilize the kingdom. Meanwhile, Amora supported Nia, rallying the people to believe in a brighter future. But as their paths diverged, so did their bond. For the first time, the sisters found themselves on opposite sides of a battle they didn't fully understand. One evening, they met in secret at the edge of the city. The tension between them was palpable. "Zay, Omari's methods are cruel. The people are suffering under his rule," Amara said, her voice pleading. "And Nia's vision is naive," Zay countered. "Her plans could lead to complete anarchy." Their argument escalated, each sister fiercely defending the side they had chosen. But beneath their words lay the deeper fear that their choices could tear them apart. "We are supposed to be in this together," Amara said, her voice breaking. "Why does it feel like we're enemies?" Zay sighed, her anger softening. I don't want this, Amora. But I don't know how to fix it. Before they could resolve their differences, the distant sound of drums interrupted their conversation. War was on the horizon, and the siblings' armies were preparing for battle. As Zoe and Amora returned to their respective camps, both wrestled with the same question: could they stay true to themselves without losing each other? The answer would come soon, but not without a price. The truth beneath the conflict. The kingdom stood on the brink of war. Drums echoed across the fields, banners waved in opposing winds, and tension simmered in every corner. Yet, amidst the chaos, Zoe and Amora couldn't shake the feeling that something larger was at play. The siblings' feud felt too deeply rooted, too irrational, as though an invisible hand guided their rage. That night, while poring over maps in Prince Omori's war room, Zoe overheard a conversation between two of his advisors. Ever since the artifact was on Earth, the prince has been consumed, one murmured. It whispers to him in his dreams. It's the same with the princess, said the other. The artifact's influence spreads like poison. This war is its doing. Zoe's breath caught. An artifact. She slipped away, the words repeating in her mind. If the artifact was behind this chaos, it had to be destroyed. Meanwhile, Amora, tending to villagers in Princess Nia's camp, heard similar whispers. The artifact, a healer told her in hushed tones. It was found in the old caves beneath the palace. The siblings both believe it will grant them power to rule. Amora knew at once what must be done. She had to find Zoe. The sisters reunited in the shadows of the forbidden forest, each hesitant but determined. For a moment, their bond felt like it had before, but unbreakable. Omori's been corrupted by an artifact, Zoe said urgently. Nia, too, Amara replied. It's controlling them. They locked eyes, their shared understanding rekindling their unity. We have to destroy it, they said in unison. Guided by fragments of stories they'd heard, the sisters ventured to the forbidden caves beneath the ruined palace. The entrance was hidden behind a tangle of vines and jagged rocks, the air within cold and damp. Every step into the darkness felt heavier, as though the cave itself resisted their intrusion. Stay close, Zoe whispered, gripping her charm. The first challenge appeared quickly, a deep chasm stretched before them, with only narrow, crumbling stones to cross. Zoe led the way, her steady nerves keeping her focused, while Amora's encouragement kept her from faltering. Together, they made it across. Deeper into the cave, the second challenge awaited. A series of mirrors lined the walls, each reflecting distorted versions of the sisters, images of fear, anger, and doubt. This is another test, Amora said, her voice trembling. Zoe nodded. We face it together. Closing their eyes, they stepped forward, their hands clasped tightly. The illusions clawed at their minds, but their shared strength pushed them through. At last, they reached the heart of the cave, where the artifact rested on a pedestal of black stone. It was a jagged crystal, pulsating with a sickly, green light. Whispers filled the air, promising power, glory, and vengeance. Don't listen, Zoe warned, feeling its pull. It's trying to divide us. Amora nodded, her voice firm. We have to destroy it, but how? The artifact's glow intensified, and the whispers turned to roars. Shadows emerged from the walls, creatures born of the artifact's dark magic. The sisters fought side by side, Zoe using her quick reflexes to outmaneuver the beast while Amora's intuition guided her strikes. As the shadows closed in, Zoe remembered the charm Osha had given her. The charm, she shouted. It's connected to this. Amora held the artifact steady as Zoe placed the charm against it. The crystal screamed, its glow faltering. A burst of energy erupted, and the shadows dissolved. The artifact cracked and shattered into dust. The cave began to tremble, the walls crumbling as if the magic that held them together was gone. "Run!" Zoe shouted, grabbing Amora's hand. The sisters raced through the collapsing tunnels, dodging falling rocks and leaping over fissures. They burst out into the open just as the entrance sealed behind them, leaving the cursed artifact buried forever. Back in the kingdom, the artifact's destruction broke its hold over Prince Omori and Princess Nia. Their minds cleared, and the rage that had fueled their feud ebbed away. Realizing the devastation they had caused, the siblings called for peace. The sisters stood at the edge of the kingdom, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced darkness and division, yet emerged united. "This isn't over," Amora said, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Zoe smiled. "No, but we are ready for whatever comes next." With the kingdom beginning to heal, Zoe and Amora turned toward the unknown, their journey far from finished. Betrayal and redemption. The journey to destroy the artifact had tested Zoe and Amora in every way imaginable, yet they had remained steadfast. But as they stood at the cave's heart, staring at the pulsating artifact, they were not alone. Kofi, the enigmatic ferryman who had once helped them cross the cursed river, stepped from the shadows. "Kofi!" Zoe gasped, her grip tightening on the charm. "What are you doing here?" His eyes glimmered with something dark, a hunger that hadn't been there before. "You've done well to come this far," he said, his voice smooth yet menacing. "But the artifact belongs to me. Its power is mine to claim." Amora stepped back, her heart pounding. "You helped us cross the river. Why betray us now?" Kofi chuckled. "Help? No, I merely guided you to the next trial. The artifact's power has called to me for years, and now, thanks to you, it is within my grasp." Before they could react, Kofi slammed his staff into the ground. The cave walls trembled, and a jagged barrier of stone rose between him and the sisters, trapping them in a smaller chamber with no visible exit. The artifact glowed brighter, its malevolent whispers growing louder. "You'll thank me later," Kofi sneered before disappearing into the shadows, leaving the sisters alone with the artifact's ominous presence. The chamber grew colder, the air thick with dread. The artifact's whispers twisted into haunting voices, each one targeting the sisters' deepest fears. "Zoe, you've always been a failure," one voice hissed. "Your father was right to cast you out." Amora shivered as another voice echoed, "You'll never be strong enough to protect those you love. You're a burden." The voices grew louder, overlapping, taunting them. The sisters clutched each other, their breaths shallow as the cave walls seemed to close in. "We have to fight it," Zoe said, her voice trembling but determined. "It's trying to break us." Amora nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "Together. Like always." The sisters closed their eyes, blocking out the artifact's whispers. Zoe focused on their shared journey, the moments when they had lifted each other up despite their struggles. Amora clung to memories of Zoe's strength, knowing it had always guided them forward. As their resolve strengthened, the whispers began to fade. The artifact's glow dimmed, its power wavering against their unity. They felt the charm Osha had given them grow warm, as though responding to their bond. "It's the charm," Zoe said, pulling it out. "It's connected to us, to our strength." Holding the charm together, they pressed it against the artifact. A surge of energy erupted, the artifact's dark glow fracturing into blinding light. The cave trembled violently as the artifact shattered into 1,000 pieces, releasing a wave of energy that knocked them to the ground. When the dust settled, the oppressive presence in the cave was gone. The air felt lighter, the darkness replaced by an almost serene stillness. Zoe helped Amara to her feet, their eyes meeting with relief and triumph. "We did it," Amara whispered. But their moment of victory was short-lived. The cave began to collapse, the destruction of the artifact destabilizing its ancient magic. Rocks tumbled from above, and fissures cracked beneath their feet. "We have to get out," Zoe shouted, grabbing Amora's hand. They sprinted through the crumbling tunnels, dodging falling debris and leaping over widening chasms. Just as they neared the entrance, the ground gave way beneath them. Zoe grabbed the jagged ledge, holding on with one hand while gripping Amora with the other. "Don't let go," Amora cried, tears streaming down her face. "I won't," Zoe grunted, summoning every ounce of strength to pull them up. With a final surge, they scrambled out of the collapsing cave, rolling onto solid ground as the entrance sealed behind them. Outside, the sisters were greeted by an unexpected sight. Prince Omori and Princess Nia stood side by side, their eyes clear of the artifact's influence. Both were expressions of gratitude and shame. "The artifact's hold is gone," Nia said softly. "We owe you more than we can express." "You saved our kingdom," Omori added, his voice humbled. "And reminded us of the bond we once shared." The siblings declared an end to their feud, vowing to rebuild the kingdom together. As a token of their gratitude, they presented the sisters with a carefully preserved map. "This map leads to the Northern Highlands," Omori explained. "It is said to be the last place your father, Chief Adisa, was seen." Amora's breath caught. "Our father." Nia nodded. "May it guide you on your next journey." With the kingdom finally at peace and a new path before them, Zoe and Amora set off once more. The map was a reminder of their ultimate goal, but their journey had already proven that their greatest strength lay not in where they were going, but in the bond they shared. As they walked away from the ruins of the artifact, the sun breaking through the clouds, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they were ready to face them, together. The Father's Realm. The journey to the Northern Highlands was arduous, but Zoe and Amora pressed on with unwavering determination. The map led them through treacherous mountain passes and vast plains, finally guiding them to a towering fortress nestled against the cliffs. The structure gleamed with wealth and power, its high walls adorned with banners bearing their father's emblem, a roaring lion. "This is it," Amora whispered, her voice tinged with both awe and apprehension. "This is where father lives now." Zoe nodded, her jaw set. "Let's see if he'll speak to us." As they approached the fortress gates, they were greeted by stern-faced guards clad in gleaming armor. The sisters explained who they were, their voices steady but their hearts racing. After a tense pause, one of the guards reluctantly allowed them entry. Inside, the fortress was a testament to luxury. The floors were polished marble, the walls adorned with intricate tapestries, and servants moved silently, tending to every need. Yet, despite its grandeur, the air felt cold and hollow, as though the heart of the fortress had long since withered. The sisters were escorted to the main hall, where Chief Adisa sat on a grand throne. He looked older, his once proud features hardened by bitterness and solitude. His piercing gaze fell on Zoe and Amora, but there was no warmth, no recognition. "Who are these intruders?" Adisa demanded, his voice as sharp as the wind cutting through the mountains. Zoe stepped forward, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Father, it's us, Zoe and Amora. Your daughters." Adisa's expression darkened. "Daughters? I have no daughters. The ones I had defied me and are dead to me." The words cut deeper than any blade, but the sisters refused to give up. Amora stepped forward, her hands trembling. "We've come so far to find you. We've endured trials and danger, all to prove that we are worthy of your love." Adisa scoffed, his voice dripping with disdain. "Love? You think your defiance deserves love? You brought shame to this family. I built this fortress with loyalty and obedience, not rebellion." Zoe clenched her fist, anger bubbling beneath her calm exterior. "We didn't defy you out of spite. We wanted to live lives of meaning, to be more than pawns in your schemes. How is that shameful?" Adisa stood, his imposing figure towering over them. You speak of meaning, but you know nothing of sacrifice. I forged this empire alone, and I owe you nothing. The sisters tried to plead further, recounting their journey and the trials they had overcome, but Adisa's heart remained unmoved. He dismissed them with a wave of his hand. If you wish to prove your worth, then do so away from my sight. I have no need for sentimental stories. As they were escorted out of the hall, the sisters felt the weight of their father's rejection pressing down on them. Amora's eyes glistened with tears, and Zoe's expression was one of barely restrained fury. He doesn't care, Amora said softly, her voice breaking. After everything we've done, he still doesn't care. Zoe placed a hand on her sister's shoulder. Maybe not now, but we're not giving up. If he won't see our worth, we'll make him see it. We've come too far to turn back. Outside the fortress, the sisters sat beneath the shadow of its towering walls, their resolve hardening. They had faced curses, shadow beasts, and betrayal. They would find a way to reach their father's heart, or forge a path without him. The journey was not over, and the greatest challenge still lay ahead. The final test. Zari and Amora sat beneath the shadow of the fortress, their father's rejection heavy in their hearts. Yet as the sun dipped below the horizon, a strange unease settled over the land. The air grew colder, and an unnatural darkness crept over the sky, swallowing the stars. Whispers carried on the wind, too faint to decipher but filled with malice. We can't stay here, Amara murmured, glancing uneasily at the shifting shadows. Zari nodded. Something's wrong. Let's find out what. As they ventured beyond the fortress walls, the sisters noticed signs of decay spreading through the surrounding lands. Crops withered in the fields, streams ran dry, and the air was heavy with despair. Villagers fled their homes, their faces pale with fear. What's happening? Zai asked one of the fleeing villagers. It's the sorceress, the man stammered. She cursed this land long ago. Now she's returned to claim her vengeance. She'll destroy everything, including the fortress. Amara frowned. Why would she target the fortress? The man hesitated, then whispered, Chief Adisa wronged her. He drove her from these lands when he built his fortress. She swore she would return when he was at his strongest and bring him to ruin. The sisters exchanged a look, the weight of the situation clear. Despite their father's rejection, they couldn't let the innocent people of the land suffer. They had to act. Guided by the villagers' stories, they followed the trail of decay to the edge of a dark forest. The trees were gnawed and twisted, their branches reaching like claws. In the heart of the forest stood a towering, crumbling tower shrouded in mist. It pulsed with an eerie glow, the source of the sorceress's curse. Inside, the sisters found the sorceress, a woman with eyes as cold as winter and a voice that dripped with venom. She stood surrounded by magical runes, her staff glowing with dark energy. So, the daughters of Adisa have come, the sorceress said, her voice echoing through the chamber. He cast me out, took my lands, and built his empire on my suffering. Now, I will take everything from him. Zoe stepped forward, her voice steady. We are not here for him. We are here for the people. They don't deserve to suffer for his actions. The sorceress laughed bitterly. And what would you know of suffering? You, who were cast out, seek to defend the very man who rejected you. Amora's voice was gentle but firm. We know pain. We know rejection. But we also know that vengeance will only bring more suffering, for everyone, including you. The sorceress's eyes narrowed, and the runes flared to life. Shadowy creatures emerged from the walls, their forms twisting and shifting like smoke. The sisters braced themselves, standing back to back as the creatures closed in. Stay together, Zay said, her grip on her charm tightening. We've faced shadows before. We can do it again. Amara nodded, her eyes shining with determination. Together, the creatures attacked, their movements swift and unpredictable. Zoe used her agility to outmaneuver them, striking with precision, while Amora's intuition guided her strikes. The sisters moved as one, their bond unshaken by the chaos. The sorceress watched them, her expression shifting from anger to curiosity. "You fight well," she admitted. "But you cannot defeat me." Zoe and Amora exchanged a glance. They knew brute strength wouldn't be enough. As the creatures dissipated, they turned their focus to the sorceress. "You're wrong," Amora said, stepping forward. "We can defeat you, not with force, but with understanding." "What are you talking about?" the sorceress snapped, her voice wavering. Zoe joined her sister. "Your pain fuels your magic, but it also blinds you. You've let it consume you. Let us end this, not with vengeance, but with peace." The sorceress hesitated, the glow of her staff flickering. For a moment, the room was silent, save for the crackling of the runes. Then, with a cry of anguish, she raised her staff, aiming it at the sisters. Zoe and Amora held the charm together, its light growing brighter. As the sorceress unleashed her magic, the charm absorbed it, creating a shield of light that engulfed the chamber. The runes shattered, and the dark energy dissipated. The sorceress fell to her knees, her power broken. She looked up at the sisters, her eyes filled with exhaustion. You are stronger than I thought." "It wasn't strength," Amora said softly. "It was unity." The curse lifted, the darkness retreating from the land. The fortress and its surroundings began to heal, the crops returning to life and the streams flowing once more. The villagers cheered as they saw the sun break through the clouds. When the sisters returned to the fortress, Chief Adisa stood at the gates, his expression unreadable. "You saved this land," he said, his voice heavy. "Why?" Zoe's voice was firm. "Because it was the right thing to do." Amora added, "Even if you don't see our worth, we'll continue to prove it, not for you, but for ourselves." Adisa looked at them for a long moment before nodding. "Perhaps I was wrong to cast you out. Perhaps I was wrong about many things." Reconciliation. The golden hues of dawn spilled over the fortress, its walls no longer looming with cold indifference. The land around it seemed to hum with life, fields revived with green shoots, rivers sparkling with fresh water, and the villagers bustling once more with hope. Zoe and Amora stood near the gates, their journey almost at its end. Yet, one thing remained unresolved. As they prepared to leave, Chief Adisa emerged from the fortress, his regal figure framed by the rising sun. He walked slowly toward them, his face etched with something neither sister had seen before, vulnerability. "Zoe, Amora," he began, his voice heavy with emotion. "You've proven yourself stronger and braver than I could have imagined. You saved this land and its people even after I cast you away." The sisters exchanged a glance but said nothing, allowing him to continue. Adisa's voice faltered, but he pressed on. "I see now that I was wrong. I let my pride blind me to your worth. I thought strength meant control, but you've shown me that true strength comes from unity and compassion. I was a fool to push you away." Amora's eyes filled with tears, her heart softening at the sight of her father's sincerity. "Father, all we ever wanted was to make you proud." Zoe's voice, though steady, carried a hint of emotion. "We didn't leave because we didn't love you. We left because we had to find our own way." Adisa nodded, his expression filled with regret. "And in doing so, you've taught me what it truly means to lead and to love. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I would welcome you back, not as my daughters, but as my equals." The sisters stepped forward, their hearts pounding. Amora embraced her father first, her tears flowing freely. Zoe hesitated for a moment before stepping into the embrace as well. The weight of years of pain and misunderstanding seemed to lift as they stood together, united at last. We forgive you, Zoe said softly. But more than that, we want to build a future together. Adisa's eyes glistened, and for the first time in years, a genuine smile crossed his face. Then let us begin. Word of the reconciliation spread quickly through the village. The people, who had suffered under the weight of the land's curse and the division within their leadership, rejoiced at the newfound unity. A grand celebration was held in the sisters' honor, with music, feasting, and dancing under the stars. The sisters, though humbled by the praise, remained grounded. They used the opportunity to speak to the villagers, emphasizing the importance of working together to rebuild not just the land, but the bonds that held their community together. As the celebration drew to a close, Zay and Amora stood with their father at the edge of the village, watching the flickering lights of lanterns and hearing the distant laughter of the people. "We've come so far," Amora said, her voice filled with wonder. "And we have so much further to go," Zay added, a small smile playing on her lips. Adisa placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "Whatever lies ahead, we will face it together, as a family." Epilogue and moral. With the sisters' bravery, unity, and forgiveness, the land flourished once more, and the bonds between the family and the people grew stronger than ever. Zari and Amora, now leaders in their own right, worked alongside their father to ensure a just and compassionate rule. The story of the sisters and their journey spread far and wide, a tale of resilience, unity, and redemption. It became a legend told to children by firesides, a reminder that even the deepest wounds could heal with courage and forgiveness. Moral. True strength lies in unity and compassion. The courage to forgive and the resilience to persevere can heal even the deepest divisions, bringing light to the darkest of times.